Salutations and welcome to Watercolors and Marine Biology. Basically, this will be a traditional painting tutorial, but with a bit of trivia thrown in to distract you from all the times I smudge or spill something. Marine biology is essentially the study of ocean life, and since the oceans cover about 70% of the Earth's surface, we sadly won't get to go over everything. Instead, we'll cover a few common myths and a few interesting facts you may not have heard before. Perhaps one of those common myths relating to marine life is that polar bears live in Antarctica. Sad as it is to say, any pictures you've seen of wild polar bears frolicking with penguins are totally a lie, since penguins live about as far away from the South Pole as is physically possible without going into orbit. Also, although this is much more common myth even than the first, polar bears actually aren't white. They instead have black skin and clear fur, which refracts light so they appear white, as shown by my sort of glowy polar bear illustration here. While I'm still outlining watercolor pencil, which is basically water-soluble color pencil, I'd like to briefly mention another carnivorous vertebrate that doesn't get nearly as much attention. Tentacled snakes may sound a bit intimidating. Their tentacles are fairly small, actually, more like appendicular whiskers, but a lot of animals unfairly get a bad rap. Sharks especially are viewed as much more dangerous than they actually are statistically, and even piranhas, for that matter, are thought of as vicious, in large part stemming from a stage show to impress a visiting Teddy Roosevelt in Brazil in 1913. In short, although tentacled snakes may seem a bit frightening because of their appearance, they are actually downright terrifying because of their coevolution with fish. Coevolution essentially refers to animals evolving in response to one another's adaptations. For example, as birds develop sharper beaks, snails might develop thicker shells. And tentacled snakes decided to one-up this game by evolving what is effectively mind control. Tentacled snakes faint and startle fish in a specific way that triggers a fixed action pattern. Basically, the fish reacts almost reflexively, and since tentacled snakes have evolved to recognize these patterns in the specific way the fish swims directly into the snake's mouth. This is not to say that coevolution is necessarily bad, however. For organisms that live in mutualistic symbiosis, which is animals that live together and both benefit from this alliance, coevolution is often a good thing. Sea anemones and clownfish, for example, are often the poster child for this type of symbiosis. Much as barnacles living on whales are often given as an example of commensalism, which is another type of symbiosis in which one party benefits while the other basically doesn't care. Whales occasionally scratch themselves against the hulls of ships, however, so it's unclear if they really don't mind or if this is more like our relationship to mosquitoes. Before I got on this tangent discussing the inner thoughts of whales, I was saying that clownfish are well known for this symbiosis with sea anemones. Basically, sea anemones provide protection and clownfish help lure other fish for the sea anemone to eat and clean up scraps, which is oddly sort of like, now that I think about it, humans' early relationships with domestication of dogs. What is less known about clownfish, however, is their exceedingly odd life cycle, even for fish, which is saying something because fish have evolved in very different ways from our own life cycle. The eyes of flounders migrate to the same side of their head as they age. Male seahorses incubate eggs, and even in this sense, clownfish are fairly unique in that all clownfish are born male and actually become female as they age. Since clownfish have matriarchal or female-dominated societies, sort of like tiny orange elephants, when a dominant female dies, a male becomes female to take her place, which is really almost unique in the animal kingdom. After all these odd life cycles and elaborate hunting strategies we've discussed, though, perhaps it is time to return to something a bit more mundane. The humble sea star, which is the quick watercolor study for today. Lumbering along passively on its hundreds of tiny legs like toothbrush bristles, it stops only occasionally to eat, forcibly ejecting its own stomach and engulfing unsuspecting prey. That was unexpected, wasn't it? A bit of a downer ending, really, actually, now that I think about it. Not quite as unexpected as sea cucumbers ejecting their own intestines when startled, though, which is, doesn't make it less disquieting, sorry.